is 9:15, so we are going to get started. I want to say good morning and buenos dias to everyone who has joined us today. For those of you coming back from yesterday, thank you for joining us again this morning. And for those of you who are just getting started with Earth Fest today, thank you for participating and attending Earth Fest at UTRGV. We are really excited about today's session. I do want to share that we have faculty, staff, students from UTRGV, but we also want to welcome the Upward Bound and the Gear Up high schools that are joining us this morning. We had several with us yesterday. We hope that you have joined again this morning and are excited about today's session. So one of the things I want to share first and foremost is that we here at UTRGV connect sustainability and align with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. These are 17 goals that cover the 3 systems that we live in that are completely interconnected and very important when it comes to quality of life. So these 17 goals cover sustainable environment, sustainable society, and sustainable economic development. And so what I want to share with you is this quadrant, of how these goals fit under environment, economy, equality, health, and well-being. And the bottom 2 being the social environment, the right being the economic development, sustainable economic development, and then the top left quadrant, which is what we're focusing our Earth Fest theme this week, which is the environmental sustainability. And so we have selected those 5 sustainable development goals to go over everything that is happening here in the Rio Grande Valley with reference to these goals. And so today we are actually going to be covering life on land, which is Sustainable Development Goal number 15. I want to apologize up front because the program that I'm showing you here, it has been corrected. Unfortunately, we did not have the time to correct it here on this slide, but we're still going to have an amazing session. Most of the speakers and presentations that are shared in this program you will hear today, but they are not in the time slot that you see right now, but you're still going to get all those wonderful presentations. Before we get started, I would like to ask those of you who are with Upward Bound, who are school districts and high schools that have joined us. This is something we forgot yesterday, is to ask you to please put in the chat an M for Monday, and dash whatever, how many students you were streaming, a T for Tuesday, and how many students you're streaming to. It will help us understand how many people we have attending our session each day from the high schools. So if you could please do that for us in the chat box, that would be very helpful. We also forgot to set up the survey, the pre and post surveys. So Jeremy's going to be sending you a link with hopes that you will take care of those for us. It is important for us to understand if you're getting anything out of these sessions. They are very informative, very inspirational and motivational, and we want to hear back from you as to how you feel about these presentations. So he will be sending you Monday's link as well as today, Tuesday's link. And if he doesn't have that in the chat, we will likely send it out to you in an email. So first and foremost, we are looking at today's Sustainable Development Goal, which is life on land, and the importance of preserving and conserving and protecting life on land. As I mentioned to you, all of this is interconnected with our health and our economy. When you consider life on land, we're talking about all the forestry, all the trees, and all the species that live on this planet, aside from us, that are important to both our economy, but our health and the health of the planet. It's not just the health of the planet. We are just as healthy as our planet. And as you know, our planet is suffering right now because we are taking so much out of the planet. If you consider everything that we consume and is produced is made out of a natural resource. It's either made out of water, it's made out of minerals. These are things that we are extracting from the planet without putting anything back. And because we're extracting it constantly, and in return, we're giving it waste, which many times is in the form of chemicals, we're hurting the planet, which is hurting our health, but it's also hurting our economy. So it's really important that we understand these interconnections and that we understand, you know, the solutions. We know that the problems are there. We're not here to point out the problems and to only talk about the problems. We're here today to talk about some of the solutions. But before we get started, we want to share this short video on Sustainable Development Goal number 15, which is to protect, restore, and promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems, sustainably manage our forests, combat desertification, and halt and reverse land degradation and half biodiversity loss. We are losing a lot of biodiversity. We're losing a lot of species. We have several that are already endangered species here within our own region. And if you didn't hear me yesterday, I will share it again today. Before COVID, the Rio Grande Valley was making $850 million in ecotourism. If we lose that biodiversity, we're also losing a lot of our economy. That's a lot of jobs. So it's important to preserve it, not just for the sake, I mean, it's really important first and foremost to preserve it for our health, but it's also part of our economy. So let's listen to this short video, and Jeremy's gonna start the video for us, and then we'll go on to some of our other presentations. Thank you. Thank you again for joining us this morning.
Protect, restore, and promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems, sustainably manage forests, combat desertification, halt and reverse land degradation, and half biodiversity loss. Forests and mountains are the main source of food. They provide air and clean water and constitute the habitat of millions of animal and vegetable species. They are indispensable. As well, around 1.6 billion people depend on forests for their subsistence, but they are threatened by our activity. Each year, 13 million forest hectares disappear, and 22% of species known as animals are at risk of extinction. Can you imagine having to describe to your children and grandchildren what the forests were like? That should never have to happen. Something very valuable is at risk. We should boost the use of sustainable terrestrial ecosystems, mainly through the fight against deforestation and soil degradation. It's our responsibility to repair the caused harm. The inhabitants of the Madhya Pradesh state of India have beat the world record of tree planting, 66 million in 12 hours, not more or less. From students to governors, everybody was involved in the reforestation of a very harmed area, as well as entering the World Guinness Record Book. In the Paris Agreement, India committed to recover 95 million hectares of forests before 2030. Its government has invested more than 6 billion in achieving that aim, but it must be fast. India is one of the most polluted countries in the world. Did you know that you can help to save our forests? 1. Try to make your bank transactions online instead of using printed receipts. Avoid paper cups. Print double-sided. Less consumption of paper means less harm for the forests. 2. Use alternative materials to wood, such as Duralmon, made with nutshells, hemp, or straw. 3. Convert into a principal the FSC certificate. Let's keep on encouraging the responsible management of our forests. 4. When finished reading this, plant a virtual tree. Social networks and web foundations distribute a lot of campaigns of this sort. 5. Take care of the forests through environmental volunteering, a great educational and healthy activity for a world with plenty of trees and the possibility of breathing calmly.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Jeremy. Our next video is a presentation from our Math and Science Academy Sustainability Ambassadors. These are high school students who are dually enrolled here at UTRGV, and they selected a sustainability project as ambassadors 2 years ago. We started this sustainability ambassadorship, and they selected to review the 17 goals for sustainable development and map out all the individuals, all the organizations, all the nonprofit agencies and organizations that are contributing to the 17 goals for sustainable development. And today we're going to hear from the 2 students that teamed up to work on Sustainable Development Goal number 15, which is life on land. This is really valuable information because it shares with all of us just how many individuals are out there actually already contributing to sustainability for the Rio Grande Valley. It's also important because we have many faculty and students who conduct research in conjunction, in partnership with our communities. And so if they're very passionate about a specific goal, it allows them the access to this information to partner with different agencies to accomplish these goals, to contribute to these goals here in the Rio Grande Valley. So we're going to hear next from these very talented and very knowledgeable students, high school students here at UTRGV, and on Sustainable Development Goal number 15. So Jeremy, if you could share that video for us, thank you.
And my name is Miguel de los Santos.
And this is our presentation on terrestrial sustainability in the Rio Grande Valley. So starting off, our goal is to discover the various organizations that support terrestrial ecosystems located across the Rio Grande Valley. Plain and simple, we believe advocating these beliefs is worthwhile for the sustainability of the RGV in both the environmental and economic facets of its cities and counties. We believe spreading awareness of the numerous organizations spread throughout the RGV will promote public awareness and as a result, help curb the declining biodiversity.
Moving on, what is terrestrial sustainability and why are we searching for it? Put simply, terrestrial sustainability can best be described as any and all actions directed towards the goal of protecting and supporting the natural ecosystems that make up the non-aquatic regions of the Earth, or more specifically in our case, the Rio Grande Valley. We do this in order to create long-lasting and efficient systems that will hopefully be carried out to both the near and far future. Our goal to discover various eco-friendly organizations is in response to Goal 15, which we can be colloquially referred to as life on land.
Before we begin describing the numerous organizations, we'd like to preface that the address, contact information, and website will be present at the bottom of the slide. The Valley Nature Center is a nonprofit organization nestled within Gibson Park. Although only 6 acres large, this center provides nothing short of the educational opportunities that foster appreciation and understanding of the unique flora and fauna of the RGV. The Estero Llano Grande State Park boasts over 5 miles of trails to explore nature, such as 340 species of birds. This park is part of the World Birding Center chain, a collection of 9 parks scattered throughout the RGV.
La Sal de Rey, where the King's Salt is a 530-acre lake of deposited salt. The lake is surrounded by approximately 5,000 acres of grassland and is recognized as a site of international significance by the Western Hemisphere Shorebird Reserve. Next, we have the Santa Ana National Wildlife Refuge. It is managed by the United States Fish and Wildlife Service. This park boasts 2,088 acres of land that was originally established in 1943 for the protection of migratory birds. In addition, this refuge is a host to more than 300 species of birds.
Lower Rio Grande Valley National Wildlife Refuge is managed by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. This park contains many acres of land that was originally established in 1979 for the protection of biodiversity of the area's land. It follows the last 75 miles of the Rio Grande River and connects dozens of independent owned tracts, as well as the other state parks in the area. The Benson Rio Grande Valley State Park is part of the World Birding Center chain. This location consists of approximately 2,000 acres of protected land that is home to 360 species of birds and butterflies.
Next, we have the National Butterfly Center. It is a 100-acre nonprofit park that was created for the preservation of the countless butterfly species that migrate through the South Texas every year. The center was founded by the North American Butterfly Association. Next is the Resaca de la Palma State Park. It is the largest of the 9 parks that make up the Rio Grande Valley's World Birding Center. With over 1,200 acres of semi-tropical land, this area provides habitat and sanctuary for many species of birds that migrate through the area every year.
The Laguna Atascosa National Wildlife Refuge encompasses the largest wildlife refuge in the lower Rio Grande Valley, with over 97,000 astounding acres of protected land and habitat spanning along the coast of the Rio Grande Valley and its border with Mexico. On top of being a sanctuary for countless bird species, this park is also home to the largest population of endangered ocelots in the entire United States. Located in the Roma Historic District, Roma Bluffs beautiful brings together the mid-1950s architecture that hints at a once sprawling and vibrant steamboat port. The scenic 3 acres of riverside land provides more than ample opportunities to experience the countless species of birds that rely on the bluffs as a sanctuary as they migrate through the area. It is one of the 9 world birding centers located in the Rio Grande Valley.
Next, we have the South Padre Island Birding and Nature Center. It is oriented on one of the world's longest barrier islands and is a host to about 50 acres of coastal habitat. And it's home to the South Padre Island's local birds and lush and vibrant local fauna. This center strives to educate and preserve the natural habitat of the island and the bay's ecosystems. It's one of the 9 parks that make up the World Birding Center. Next, we have McAllen's Quinta Mazatlan. It's a 20-acre property that contains a 10,000 square foot adobe mansion, as well as nearly 15 acres of birding land that is sanctuary to the migratory birds that populate and pass through South Texas. The center sees itself as having a mansion on a mission to educate the local people about the importance of environmental care and stewardship. It is one of the 9 parks that make up the World Birding Center.
Moving on, we have the old Hidalgo Pump House, which is home to an early look at how the city of Hidalgo became. As the World Birding Center states, an agricultural powerhouse by use of the steam-powered irrigation pumps, one of which has been converted into a museum. Along with its historical education, the center also strives to provide the local bird population with a refuge by which they can take sanctuary as they migrate through the area. The Arroyo Colorado is situated in the lower Rio Grande Valley, which is primarily used as a conduit or floodway for wastewater conveyance. In addition, many fishermen use this as a recreational area. The woodlands surrounding Arroyo Colorado are approximately 95 acres wide, providing a large yet rare refuge for birds. This park, or this river, is one of the 9 locations of the World Birding Center.
Next, we have Edinburgh Scenic Wetlands and World Birding Center. Although this birding center may be small in size, its extensive nature walks make it a very breathtaking place to be. This park is located in the heart of Edinburgh's wetlands. During the winter months, approximately 13 different duck species migrate over the freshwater lanes. In addition, 6 acres of flowering beds provide the butterflies for nectar. This location is one of the 9 centers of the World Birding Center. Moving on, we have many other organizations and events that focus on improving the environment as a whole. For example, we have Rio Reforestation. It is an annual public event hosted by the UTRGV National Wildlife Refuge that invites the public to plant trees in land that has lost its vegetative surroundings. We also have the South Texas Refuge, Complex, and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. It manages the state parks located in the Rio Grande Valley, specifically the Laguna, Atascosa, Lower Rio Grande Valley Wildlife Refuge, and Santa Ana National Wildlife. Next, we have the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. The goal of this organization is to protect Texas public health while keeping natural resources consistent with sustainable economic development.
If you want to learn of all 17 goals set by the United Nations General Assembly in 2015, feel free to visit the listed website for additional information. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to congratulate Amrit and Michael. They did such an amazing job collecting all this information, and they are incredible presenters. Again, I remind you, these are high school students that are dually enrolled here at UTRGV, and I can't tell you how proud we are of them as sustainability ambassadors because they do incredible work. And if you would like a copy of this presentation, I'm sure some of you, like myself, have not visited all the locations that they listed. And since they did this presentation last year, I've actually visited a couple of those that I was lacking on the list, and they are breathtaking. So if you have an opportunity to visit all these sites, again, it helps us in contributing to the Sustainable Development Goal number 15 in really understanding what's in our own backyard and really understanding it in a sense of intentional preservation, of us really taking that step of making sure that we protect what is in our backyards, because it is important to our health and important to our economy. So with that, we're going to move next to our next presenter and a faculty member who is working really hard conducting research here within the Rio Grande Valley, and he is connecting with our communities and working with our students. And today he's bringing us a presentation called Southern Blight on Tomatoes. And so we're going to hear his presentation, and I do believe Dr. Robin Choudhury is with us this morning. So we'll have an opportunity for a quick Q&A. If anyone has any questions, we're going to ask you to please put them in the chat or in the Q&A box. Unless you want your mic to be unmuted, we do need the Q&A session to be short since we're very limited with time. So if there's several questions, we will make sure to ask Dr. Choudhury to answer those via chat while other presentations are taking place. So thank you once again for joining us, Dr. Robin Choudhury, and for being a part of this year's Earth Fest 2022. With that, I'm going to ask Jeremy to please share the video. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Robin Choudhury. I'm an assistant professor here at UTRGV, and I research plant diseases. Plant diseases affect all sorts of plants, both in agriculture and in natural landscapes. We're here at the Hub of Prosperity in Edinburgh, Texas, and we're going to talk to you a little bit today about different types of management strategies that you can do at your home. We're going to interview Stephanie Casper, very kindly holding the camera right now, about her tomato variety trial that she has here. Thank you very much.
I'm Stephanie Casper. I'm the program manager of UTRGV's Hub of Prosperity Farm. We're out here in our annual tomato variety trial. We have 20 different tomato varieties growing behind me right now. This is the third year that we've had a tomato variety trial here at the Hub. The first year I planted all of my favorite varieties from the farm I worked at in Central Texas, and almost all of them contracted tomato yellow leaf curl virus. So that season the tomatoes really struggled, they didn't produce very much, and I kind of took that as a challenge to figure out how to do a better job of growing tomatoes here in the valley, find the varieties that work well here, and kind of then growing those out in the field each spring and keeping data about their disease susceptibility, their yield, and then we throw a big tomato party here every year in May at the peak of the season, Tomato Fest, and get people to come out and taste all the tomatoes and give us flavor rankings on them. So we take that data, kind of go back, compile it all, and make our decisions about what varieties to grow the next year. So it's been a little bit better, a little bit more productive each season, and hopefully more and more delicious tomatoes soon to come.
So, as Stephanie mentioned, some varieties that you plant might be more successful than others. Some varieties might end up failing in your garden, while other varieties might succeed wildly. So you have to plant out a multitude of varieties to see what works best for you. Here we have in the Hub of Prosperity several different varieties of cabbage crops that were planted out so that they could find out what grows best in their region.
You should try a wide range of varieties in your garden to see what works best for you. Here's some of the varieties that I've grown in my own garden. I've grown a wide variety of tomatoes, including Sun Golds and Sweet 100s, as well as a wide variety of cucumbers, okra, peppers, and basil. I've also grown some pumpkins, which were surprisingly effective and ended up coming in handy quite a little bit later on down the year. You should rotate your crops in your garden, so don't plant the same crop in the same area of your garden over and over and over again, because it'll start to accumulate pathogens in the soil. So over the course of multiple years, you should switch up where you plant stuff. Here we have 2 tomato plants that have been heavily affected by southern blight at the hub of prosperity. These tomato plants started to wilt later on in June. What we ended up finding was that there was a severe disease in the soil that was growing quite steadily. It was caused by this fungus called Sclerotium ralphsii. We were able to isolate the fungus, and what we ended up finding was that the fungus that we had in this region was heavily affected by extreme temperatures. And so here you see the growth of the fungus at different temperatures, 15 degrees centigrade, 25 degrees centigrade, 35 and 45 degrees centigrade. At around 45 degrees centigrade, a little bit above 100 degrees Fahrenheit, we saw that the pathogen did not grow very well. So using a combination of tarping, which increased the temperature of the soil, tillage, which turned the soil over, and growing non-host crops like sorghum, we were able to reduce the pathogen load in that area of the farm. Not everything that occurs inside of soils is exactly negative. Some plants can actually fix nitrogen out of the atmosphere and into the soil. Here's 2 plants that are capable of doing that, including sun hemp, which is used as a cover crop in the Rio Grande Valley, and cowpea, which is also used. You can see the nodules on these plants. So the sun hemp has relatively small nodules and the cowpea has relatively large nodules. Here is Culina rye, a former master's student that I shared with Dr. Alex Rossellis. She studied how sun hemp grew in the Rio Grande Valley and how best to grow it. We ended up finding a few diseases that helped to affect the disease of the crop, and we studied different types of control strategies for them. When you're watering your plants, you want to be really careful not to over or underwater your plants. If you over or underwater your plants, they might end up dying. Here we see an aloe plant that was kept waterlogged in a pot for far too long. As the plant was waterlogged, it ended up becoming more and more susceptible to bacteria that caused rotting symptoms. That's these kind of water-soaked lesions that you're seeing on the plant. When you're using your garden, you should be really creative. This homeowner ended up using their fence to grow as a trellis for cucumber varieties. And so they were able to use existing infrastructure to grow within their own yard. Not all diseases will necessarily negatively impact you. Some diseases, like powdery mildew on pumpkins, might exist, but they might not necessarily impact the total output of your garden. So you don't always need to worry about every single plant disease that occurs in your garden. Here we see an okra fruit that I grew in my yard, and an okra flower. Flowers are very useful across the landscape because they help to provide pollinator habitat for lots of different types of pollinators. In the Rio Grande Valley, we have many different types of pollinators. So we sometimes use moths and butterflies. So here's a skipper moth that's growing on vetch flowers that I have in my backyard. These vetch plants are being affected also by powdery mildew, but the powdery mildew is not negatively affecting the overall growth and health of the plant. Here we see native bee species pollinating a watermelon flower. And here we see queen butterflies feeding on blue mist flowers on the UTRGV campus. So ultimately, what you hope to develop is to have one of the best gardens that you could possibly have. But it's okay to have the okayest garden. Building your own food resources will help you to become more sustainable in the long run. So I highly encourage you to adopt gardening if you are able to. Not everyone has property that they can grow on. However, several organizations around the Rio Grande Valley have available raised beds that might be available for you within the community. So the Hub of Prosperity here on the left has some raised beds that are being used by community members to grow local veggies. And the Edinburgh World Birding Center also has raised bed areas. These planting areas can help young students and children to learn about agriculture and to become more involved in the valley. If you can't grow and if you can't do anything in terms of growing your plants, you can buy from fresh local veggies from farmers markets. Here we have the team at the Hub of Prosperity on Saturday mornings with their market proceeds. There are several different farmers markets throughout the Rio Grande Valley, and many of them provide fresh local veggies that you can purchase. Within my own lab, we have several different projects that are very intriguing and are currently ongoing. Here's one of my current master's students, Isabel Martinez, who's researching sugarcane and how some diseases, like sugarcane red rot, might be impacted by the presence or absence of other vectors or insects like the Mexican rice borer. One of my other graduate students, Lily Elliott, is studying how harvester ants occur in both suburban and agricultural areas. She also studies how they select and prefer different types of seeds. So here we see harvester ants as they select different types of seeds over time as a time lapse. This is Joseph Rubago. He is a current bachelor's student within my lab, and Joseph has handled many different types of projects. One of the first projects that I put him on was to look at how different varieties of okra are affected by powdery mildew disease, which is a fungal disease that affects the foliage of the plants. He found several varieties that were very effective at growing despite the disease. Altogether, we're putting together a research program to look at how agriculture can become more sustainable in the Rio Grande Valley, thinking about lots of different types of crops and how you can build a more healthy and sustainable food system. We are very grateful for our partners and helpers at the Hub of Prosperity. And we want to thank you for listening. So from all of us at UTRGV, thank you very much, and I hope you have a wonderful Earth Day.
So I want to thank Dr. Choudhury for such a wonderful presentation, really inspirational. The Hub of Prosperity is fairly new, but it is already having such great success. So while Jeremy checks the chat for any questions, or if anyone wants to have their mic unmuted so they can ask a question, I do want to ask the first question to Dr. Choudhury, which is if you could please share, it's not a question, but if you could please share a little bit of information on where the Hub of Prosperity is and how to contact for field trips and educational tours, and also for those interested in actually participating in your community garden. If someone wants to learn how to grow a garden, I think it's one of the ideal places to visit is the Hub of Prosperity to learn from our faculty and students. So Dr. Choudhury, take it away and give us some information. We do have participants that I know are very interested in visiting the Hub of Prosperity.
Hi, Marinella. Yes, the Hub of Prosperity is located in Edinburgh, Texas. It's located on Monmouth and University in Edinburgh, kind of, so in the kind of more western side of town, west of campus, shall we say. To contact and set up meetings, you can reach out directly to Stephanie Casper, who I will put her email in the chat box in case you want to reach out directly to her. for visits to the farm. They also have volunteer hours. The volunteer hours change from time to time, and the best and most up-to-date way to keep up with volunteer hours at the Hub of Prosperity is to basically check their Instagram page, I think is the most up-to-date. And I think that that's just at hub_of_prosperity on Instagram. Yeah, was there another question that I missed?
I just wanted to say thank you for sharing all your students and the success of all the students that are doing incredible work with you on the research side and on projects. So can you share a little bit on some of the different pathways in sustainable agriculture and agroecology for those students who may be interested in these fields?
Yeah, so there's lots of really cool avenues for research and for kind of experience across UTRGV. There are lots of different labs at UTRGV that do lots of different aspects. I specifically focus on plant diseases, so things that kill plants. A lot of times I focus on fungal pathogens, but there are all sorts of other researchers at UTRGV who do all sorts of really cool things, and we've heard about some of them, and we will continue to hear about some of them as the morning goes on. Alex Rosellis's lab is consistently hiring wonderful students. And I would say probably one of the best path forward is to just, if you get a chance to volunteer either at the Hub of Prosperity, if you want to see what agriculture is like, or to volunteer in a lab, just to kind of get a flavor for what research is like.
Wow.
And if you reach directly at the faculty, a lot of times they will have we oftentimes have some sort of need for hands in our labs. So if you find someone who's doing interesting research that you find fascinating, you can always email the faculty directly.
Wonderful. So I am going to ask Jeremy now if there's any questions. We are running a little short on time with the technical difficulties we had in between. So I do need to go to our next presenter, but if there are any questions, Jeremy, in the chat or the Q&A, if you could direct those to Dr. Choudhury so that he can respond to those via the chat, I'd appreciate it so we can move on to our next presenter. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Choudhury, for joining us again this year with an amazing presentation. Really appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks, Marinella. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. So next we have Dr. Christopher Gabler. Dr. Christopher Gabler is another one of those sustainability faculty champions who have been with us from the beginning, giving presentations every year for not just our Earth Fests, but many other events. He is also a committee member and has helped us with the designation of our Tree Campus USA as well as our Bee Campus USA designation. I will share some of the links, or I'm going to have Jeremy share some of the links to our reports for Bee Campus and Tree Campus USA, which will allow you to see the amazing work that is happening here at UTRGV with reference to that. But I want to introduce you and share with you that Dr. Christopher Gabler is an assistant professor at the School of Earth, Environmental, and Marine Sciences with a joint appointment at the Department of Biology. And today his presentation is on growing vegetables and native trees at the Brownsville Research and Community Gardens. We have many gardens, many different types of gardens at UTRGV. You just heard from Dr. Choudhury, who talked about the farm and the community garden at the farm. Dr. Christopher Gabler has different kinds of gardens over at the Brownsville campus, and he's going to share a little bit about those. So thank you so much, Dr. Gabler, for joining us. And Jeremy, if you could please share his pre-recorded presentation, and then we'll go to Q&A right afterwards. Thank you.
I'm Dr. Chris Gabler, an assistant professor in SEAMS and the Department of Biology here at UTRGV. And I'm going to talk today about growing vegetables and native trees at the Brownsville Research and Community Garden and how you can get involved. The Brownsville Research and Community Garden, or BRCG, is located on the east side of Brownsville campus, just south of Casa Bay student dorms and west of the campus police station. There are actually two important assets here. On the southern side is what we sometimes call Project Crawfish. This is the food garden where students and community members can grow their own food. On the north side, which doesn't appear in this old aerial image, is the UTRGV Native Plant Nursery, where we're growing Tamaulipan thorn forest trees and shrubs, which are being used for regional reforestation. We call the food garden Project Crawfish because it's actually a climate resilient, agroecologically based, watershed food integrated system for husbandry. That's quite a mouthful, but each of these different terms means some specific things about how we're growing food here and what we're doing to manage the soil and the water. If you have interest in this or would like to know more, please contact me because this is beyond the scope of the current talk. The basic idea, though, is that food is produced in 3 compartments: raised beds, treatment wetlands, and aquaculture ponds. Compartments are hydrologically connected in that order to create what we like to call model watersheds. Nutrient-rich but polluted water can be moved from the aquaculture pond and serve to irrigate and fertilize the plants in the raised bed. As the water moves through the raised bed and through the treatment wetland before returning to the aquaculture pond, the plants, the soil, the fungi and bacteria that live in these beds act to absorb nutrients and purify the water, functioning like a filter. And once the water's moved to the raised bed, this all happens without energy because water's flowing with gravity. The image on the right is a schematic of what this roughly is meant to look like. And this is actually a very low input and extremely low waste system in what's really considered a zero electricity aquaponics production system. Being scientists, we actually created 12 of these model watersheds in the layout shown here so that we could experiment and have replication. Construction of the model watersheds at the BRCG began in January 2017 and started with some heavy machinery doing the large earthwork. After that, a team of undergraduate and graduate students and myself worked with hand tools to fine-tune the shape and size of these compartments. Once they were dug, we put in the necessary plumbing and lined the ponds and wetlands with rubber, as well as the raised beds here you can see built with lumber. This part of the BRCG officially opened in May of 2017, as shown here from our ribbon cutting ceremony. The main objectives of Project Crawfish and the food garden at the BRCG are first, to produce free and nutritious food for students in the local community. Second, to enable and perform research in agricultural and environmental sciences. Third, provide teaching resources for K through 12, undergraduate and graduate students. And fourth, to engage the broader community through public outreach and extension services. If you're interested in any of this, please come join us for food. It's free. You can grow your own, or you can help us grow. All are great. This May, the food garden at the BRCG will have been running for 5 years. And so far, we've done a good job of achieving our goals. We've grown and donated over 230 pounds of food, including serving as a distribution point during COVID-19, with a lot of help from the Office of Professional Development. We've had a lot of students working in the garden, some for pay, even more volunteers. We've had 11 senior research or thesis projects that use the garden and 16 presentations about that research. 5 courses regularly use the BRCG, and we hope more do so in the future. We've gotten a lot of good press and publicity, as well as regularly participating in Earth Fest. So we would love to see these numbers grow, especially student research. So again, if you're interested in getting involved in any way, please contact me. In addition to the food garden, the BRCG is also home to the UTRGV Native Plant Nursery. And like the food garden, this is a major teaching and research resource. So far, we've had 2 federal contracts with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to grow native tree seedlings for regional reforestation. And at this point, we're profitable. Our operation should turn a small profit every year. Looking forward, we can use the nursery to offer new degree programs or job training related to nursery or greenhouse management, forestry or horticulture. And in general, the nursery serves as one of UTRGV's flagship sustainability and community projects. We're doing work that provides a major public need, namely restoration of local ecosystems. It engages multiple communities across the region. It's allowing students to take active roles in restoring ecosystems of the Rio Grande Valley. And our longer term to double as a nature park or arboretum right on the Brownsville campus. We decided to focus on native trees because the Tamaulipan thorn forests of the RGV have very high conservation value. And this is in part because they're home to several endangered species. But we have lost or severely degraded most of these habitats. And this means that many federal, NGO, and corporate organizations have already invested in reforestation of the RGV. However, the demand for native Rio Grande Valley tree species greatly exceeds the supply that's needed for these regional reforestation projects. And part of the reason for this is because commercial growers tend to avoid local tree species because they have unknown production requirements, which lead to narrow profit margins and difficulties in scaling these up. So basically, the money is there for reforestation, but the trees are not, and we are fixing this. Construction of the native plant nursery began in April 2020 and started with a teardown of our old aquaponic and vertical hydroponic systems. Here we're beginning construction of new greenhouse tables that can hold tens of thousands of seedlings. And here are those same tables as they near completion. And here we see a detail of the soil media you need to fill 70,000 tree containers. Here, the first phase of setup is complete, and you can see some of the first tree containers are set up and filled on the tables. Fast forward to June, and we already have thousands of individual trees getting started in propagation trays, which you can see in the foreground. In the background, you can see germination trays where we've planted seeds and new sprouts are coming up. It wasn't long before we filled up all our tables and had to expand and set up new tables on the west side of the Brcg. Here we are in July, bracing for Hurricane Hannah, which really involved tying down the leading edges of our rows of trays and basically hoping for the best, which we were very lucky. Things went quite well. And here we are in October, near the end of our first growing season. And you can see the lush carpet of tens of thousands of native thorn forest tree seedlings. It's been a tough couple of years to start a nursery. You all may have heard of this COVID-19 thing. It's caused a few problems for us. We've had the same challenges almost everyone has: personnel and travel restrictions, material shortages, delays. One big challenge for us has been the move off campus, which really hamstrung student and community participation, but that's now turning around. Nevertheless, we had over 45 undergraduate and 11 graduate students participate. We grew 12 different native Tamaulipan thorn scrub species, and we've delivered over 35,000 trees to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for local planting. Our first student paper has been published in a peer-reviewed journal. We have 3 more in late stages of prep, and we're off to a great start in year 3. And I'll close with this artistically arranged shot of almost 5,000 native thorn scrub tree seedlings, staged for delivery to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. My parting message is to remind you of the UN Sustainability Development Goals and point out that we designed both of these projects with the 17 goals in mind. We're proud to say that these projects address many of the UN goals, denoted here by corn icons to show which goals are addressed by the community garden, and by tree icons to show those addressed by the native plant nursery. I strongly encourage you to take these goals to heart. We have. Keep them high in mind when you're making decisions and planning work, because careful planning and thoughtful design can make you an active part of the solution to our current sustainability crisis. Thank you very much for listening and for participating in our Earth Fest. If you want to get involved, please contact me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gabler. As always, so inspirational, so motivational, such incredible work. And I'm so glad that you shared all the successes that you're having with this amazing project, as well as the Crawfish Garden project. we have very limited time, so rather than go through Q&A, I'm going to ask if you want to share just a few more comments, maybe share your contact information on the chat so that it allows people to connect with you for tours of these gardens, and also maybe educational sessions for some of the high schools where our students I know are very interested in all this type of work and possibly in these type of career paths. So if you could share your link and a few words, and so we can move on to our next presenter.
Absolutely, I'd be happy to do so, Marinella. And I don't know if you can see my video feed here, maybe not. But I'm at the garden right now, and we have a lot of things going on besides just the nursery, right? So we got a contract for our 3rd year to grow trees. We're doing that. We've rejuvenated our raised beds, which are in good production again. We sort of had a delay during COVID because we didn't have classes working in the beds, but that's they're all active now. And we have some fun new projects going on right now. I'm actually standing in the middle of our a reforestation experiment where we're also planting some of these trees ourselves to look at how we can manage them and keep them alive and growing better. And so there's also some field experiments now incorporated at the community garden. So, you know, our enterprise continues to grow, and there's lots of different ways folks can get involved. If you like to grow the trees, or plant the trees, or grow the food, you know, there's something for everybody in Brownsville. So glad to be able to serve more of the whole valley area and region. So I'll put my contact information in there, and by all means, just let me know if you're interested in visiting or getting involved. All of that is great. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gabler. You have done such an incredible job in putting all this together all these years, and I know the students are doing so great. They have so much fun working with you, and I know because I've heard from some of your students and just how delighted they are to work on these projects. So it's just very, very motivational to hear them speak as well. I hope that in the coming Earth Fests, we have the opportunity to hear from them as well as we expand Earth Fest into something more lively and not so much virtual. I hope that we can start including those students. So thank you once again, and much more success to you and to all your students in your upcoming years of all these wonderful projects. And so we're going to move now to our next presenter. Thank you again, Dr. Gabler. And
my pleasure. Thank you, Marinella.
Hope to see you at the Pollinator Cantina on Friday. Maybe you can bring some of those trees to give out at the Pollinator Cantina.
I hope so too. I think we can manage that.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. So next we have Dr. Alejandro Fierro-Cabo, who is also an assistant professor over at the School of Earth, Environmental and Marine Sciences, also with a joint appointment with the Department of Biology, also has a nursery, but his is in collaboration with the Nature Conservancy. And so this is a partnership in thorn forest restoration. And Dr. Fierro-Cabo is the chair of our Bee Campus committee. So he is one of the individuals that you're going to hear from that helped us also with our Bee Campus designation. So I'm going to ask Jeremy if he could please share the presentation, and we will quickly go to Q&A immediately after. Jeremy, is Dr. Fierro-Cabo with us this morning?
I do not believe so, Ms. Franklin.
Okay, so then we won't have Q&A with Dr. Fierro-Cabo, but we will certainly give you the contact information for him, as well as I had mentioned earlier, links to these reports, to the Bee Campus report, our Pollinator Cantina website, so that you can see that. And you're going to hear about the Pollinator Cantina, or the Pollinator Garden, which is called Pollinator Cantina, from Dr. Julie Mustard here in the next presentation as well. So Jeremy, if you could please share that video, and we'll move immediately afterwards over to the next presentation.
Hello, my name is is Alejandro Fierro. I'm an associate professor at UTRGV. I focus mostly on ecological restoration, restoration ecology, different aspects of it. We are here at a private protected area known as Southmost Preserve. Belongs to the Nature Conservancy. And we are going to talk today about efforts to restore thorn forest, Tamaulipan thorn forest, or Tamaulipan thorn scrub, in the valley, in efforts in collaboration with the Nature Conservancy and UTRGV. Matorral espinoso tamaulipeco, we call it in Mexico, and it's an endangered, today is considered an endangered plant association because about 3% of the original extent remains in US, this side of the river. It also goes to the other side of the river into Mexico, where 15% remains. So it's a threatened plant association. Main threats include, or mostly, are habitat loss and land use change, basically, for agricultural development, for urban development, urban infrastructure, and such. This biome covers South Texas and the half north of Tamaulipas, Nuevo León, and Coahuila states. We are talking about a very special plant association that obviously by the name you may imply that is dominated by thorny species of trees and other woody species, many shrubs. We are talking about 300 species that have been documented that constitute this very unique type of biome or plant association. And these 300 species include herbaceous and woodies, but of the woody species, which is the plant, the dominant plant form, about 1/3 are leguminous plants, so plants of the same family as, for example, the lentils or the soya beans. The species are also common around town. For example, the Texas sage or cenizo is a species from this association. The ebony, the mesquite, the huizache, these are species from this association that are now part of our ornamental species around town. Sabal palm, the palm that you see behind me, is also native and is part of this association closer to the river. There are some protected areas scattered in both US and Mexican sides. 5 state parks in the valley, a couple of state parks out of the valley that are protect this kind of biome. There are 3 national wildlife refuges in the valley that are also covering parts of this biome. In Mexico there is a very large natural protected area, federal natural protected area, Laguna Madre y Delta del Rio Bravo. There is a clear need, urgent need to not just conserve what is left, but obviously to restore a little bit of what has been lost. And in that sense, the Nature Conservancy has been doing a great job. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife has been doing a great job for many years. They are promoting restoration of tracts of land, abandoned agricultural land, to connect patches of these forests, corridors, etc. And now UTRGV is working on or joining this effort in collaboration now with the Nature Conservancy.
My name is Sonia Nájera. I work for the Nature Conservancy. I'm the Coastal Plains Projects Director, and we are here at Southmost Preserve in the Lower Rio Grande Valley. The Nature Conservancy is a non-profit international organization with a mission of protecting the land and water that all life depends on. We do that through land protection, through managing and restoring land, working with partners, and doing research. We're a science-driven organization, and science drives our work. Here at Southmost Preserve, we are focused on restoring the Tamaulipan thorn forest. We not only have over 1,000 acres protected and undergoing restoration, but we're also a plant material center. We collect seed from our preserve, from surrounding landowners, the wildlife refuges, so that we can provide seedlings for restoration efforts that are going throughout the valley. We started working with Dr. Alejandro Fierro, and UTRGV, and developing a partnership so that they could help us test techniques on the ground, and we could also provide a place and a forum so that we could test ecological restoration techniques focused on Tamaulipan thorn forest restoration, with a greater vision of establishing the preserve as a biological field station.
Yo soy Marcos Ruiz y trabajo en la preserva de Sosmos. Soy técnico en restauración. Me dedico al vivero de estas plantas que miran aquí atrás de mí. Y soy colector de semillas de 52 o 58 clases de árboles. Nosotros las procesamos, las limpiamos, las hacemos crecer, hacemos toda clase de trabajos que ustedes están mirando aquí a mis espaldas. La producción que hacemos año con año es un trabajo permanente que tenemos que hacer para reforestación dentro de la preserva y fuera de la preserva. Quizás podemos hacer 80, 90, puede ser hasta 100,000 plantas por año, cuando tenemos gente suficiente. Y cuando no, 20 o 30,000 plantas es lo que máximo que podemos mover en este vivero. Creo que es un trabajo muy importante para mí y para todos los compañeros que trabajan conmigo. Es colaboración con ellos, me siento más a gusto porque estamos creciendo más.
Hi everyone, my name is Douglas Mainhart. I am a graduate student here at UTRGV. My thesis is focused on improving plants' response to transplant shock out when they're planted for restoration purposes. My thesis specifically is focused on understanding how we can improve their water use efficiency. And to do that, we're going to apply several treatments to these plants before outplanting into the field, with the hope that this improves their water use efficiency, so when they're put out into the field, they're able to withstand that stress better and hopefully grow quicker and compete with the invasive grasses and just overall improve restoration efforts in the valley.
I hope you have learned something about the thorn forest, and I hope you will look at the thorn forest around you in a different way. A very important type of vegetation, very diverse. It's not just thorns, it has so much life and so much diversity. And I wish you a happy Earth Day.
I want to thank Dr. Fierro-Cabo for his leadership. He is also another one of our amazing sustainability faculty champions who is helping us here at UTRGV with those designations of Tree Campus USA and Bee Campus USA, but also his amazing research and work is helping our students and helping the region as a whole. So I too hope that for those of you who may not have considered when you hear the word forestry or the word forest here in the RGV, some have this misinterpretation of what that is. So this is what Dr. Fierro-Cabo was sharing with us today. The Rio Grande Valley forest is that thorn brush, is that thorn forest. And it's really important for us to preserve what we have, as he mentioned, and to also restore what we've lost. I don't know if you heard the entire time they were out there, the beautiful birds singing. And I'm sorry, I don't know which bird it was. Maybe Dr. Timothy Brush, I know, is with us, who's an expert on birds. He might be able to share in the chat what kind of bird was out there singing so beautifully. I would love to have that every day in my backyard, and it would take me planting these native plants, these native trees, in order to have that. And that's what we've lost. We used to have that all throughout the Rio Grande Valley. And so it's important for us to consider restoring all this with native plants and native trees. So thank you so much for listening to Dr. Alejandro Fierro-Cabo. We will share his contact information with you. Well, actually, it's right there. There is his email address. If you would like to communicate and connect with him, please do so. And again, we are recording these sessions so that you have the opportunity to watch all this again later. When we complete the entire week of Earth Fest, we'll have all this posted, probably edited a little bit because of the technical difficulties, but we will have it all posted afterwards. We are going to go to our next presenter. I think you're going to really enjoy this presentation. He's a visiting associate professor also from the School of Earth, Environment, and Marine Sciences. Dr. Sebastian Interlandi is going to talk to us about urban ecology and livestock farming. There is a particular point in his presentation that I kind of lose it because I can't focus on what he's saying, and you're going to understand exactly when that point is as soon as Jeremy starts the video. But I do want to ask Jeremy, is Dr. Interlandi with us this morning, or is he busy in class?
I believe they are otherwise engaged, Ms. Rainford.
Okay. Wonderful. So we will be going on to our next presenter immediately after this presentation as well. But I hope you enjoy this incredible presentation, also very inspiring and very informative. Thank you, and please share, Jeremy.
Of all the challenges we have to face on this planet, perhaps none is more important to think about on Earth Day than climate change. More frequent and intense drought, storms, heat waves, rising sea levels, melting glaciers, warming oceans, and refugees fleeing these climate disasters are all expected in the coming decades in every region of the globe. And while there are lots of things we can do at home to lower our carbon footprint, like composting and recycling, the most important thing we can do to mitigate these coming disasters is to end our dependence on fossil fuels. Driving less, carpooling, driving more, fuel-efficient or electric cars, insulating our homes better so they are more efficient to cool and to heat. These are all things that can help, but we need to do so much more than this. I'm an organic farmer. This is me and my friend Sammy. I raise sheep and grow potatoes without using synthetic chemicals on my 85-acre farm in upstate New York, and I've worked to build farms in many places throughout the Western Hemisphere. I've seen the confusion farmers face from changing weather patterns and a rapidly shifting global marketplace that is more and more difficult for small family farms to navigate. As farmers, we all know that our industry has a big carbon footprint and that we have a big role to play in meeting this challenge. I got into farming because I love food and being outdoors, growing plants and animals for food to feed my neighbors, for fiber to clothe my family and friends. It's one of the most satisfying callings to have. There's nothing better than bringing my own cheese to share with farmer friends in the mountains of Ecuador and bringing home beautiful alpaca blankets for cold northern winters. But I know that every time I fly to visit them, and every time I use diesel fuel in my tractors, and every time I fuel up on gas for my delivery vehicles, I'm doing something that is unsustainable. Like feeding this little lamb from the bottle, it can't go on forever. We're addicted to something that is hurting us bad. According to the EPA and the World Resources Institute, agriculture is responsible for 10% of greenhouse gas emissions in the U.S. and 11% globally. The methane released by ruminants, including cows, sheep, and buffalo, is responsible for about a third of all of these agricultural greenhouse gas emissions, meaning that the methane from our animals is ultimately responsible for 3% of all global warming. Depending on who's counting, there are something like 1 or 1.5 billion cows on this planet and 1 billion or so sheep. Further, according to the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations, there are 570 million farms in the world, most of them small family operations. So this is not a point source pollution problem, and it is not an easy one to solve. If there is any solution to the problem of methane from animals on this planet, it is going to take a huge communication strategy among the world's farmers to solve. My farm is on Tug Hill in Oneida County, New York. I raise a small flock of sheep that I use for meat and wool. I also grow potatoes and garlic and dabble in lots of other things. For Creative Shepherd Farm and other farms in the Northeast, perhaps some global warming is actually a good thing. My fields are snow-covered from mid-November through the end of March, and I can easily store water for summer irrigation. As the years go by, productivity for us will likely go up as our earth warms. However, I also work with organic farmers in the Rio Grande Valley of Texas and others of Ecuador, where the changing weather patterns precipitated by climate change are anything but helpful to them. As hurricanes strengthen, droughts lengthen and intensify, and as seasonal rainfall patterns are becoming less predictable, farmers in these regions are having a harder time maintaining organic agricultural systems. It is clear that we can't continue to do things in the manner we have been for the past 100 years, driving global weather patterns to greater extremes and expecting national and global stability to result. For me, as a livestock farmer in particular, the responsibility to change my farming practice is one I cannot overlook. A lot of us have gotten into the idea that local food systems can help us in this challenge, that if we just buy food from farms that are close to where we live, we can solve a big part of the problem with the food system. But it's just not that simple. Half of the Earth's usable land is in agriculture right now, more than ever before, and it is mostly to grow animals. Only about 8% of all the energy used to produce food and get it to consumers is in the transportation. Almost all of the energy is in the production, in the fuel for tractors, the energy used to produce petrochemical herbicides and pesticides and synthetic fertilizers for use in conventional production systems. So being a local food farmer doesn't really help you solve the problem of global warming, not directly anyway. Us small farmers with animals, we like to talk about how healthy it is to raise your animals on pasture rather than on feedlots, how much better the meat is for your family to eat, and how much less stress there is for the animals. And all of this is true. And people sure do prefer to see happy animals ranging out in the grass rather than feeding from troughs full of dusty brown material, pretty much indistinguishable from sawdust to the hand and eye. But the dirty secret is that grass-fed cows produce more methane than cows eating corn and soy meal at feedlots. For all the instinctual revulsion we have to those industrial processes and systems, they are, just like humans when concentrated in cities and have smaller carbon footprints, these systems are more efficient and better for the global carbon budget. But what can we do with the methane problem? For conventional farmers, the idea of a pill or vaccine that can lower or even eliminate methane production for their animals is rapidly becoming a reality. For organic farmers, there is the possibility that natural food supplements made from macroalgae with antimicrobial properties and the ability to inhibit methane generation will soon be available to provide the same benefits. Over the past 20 years, an explosion of research into enteric methane production has included trials of vaccines to eliminate methanogens from the gut and the development of food supplements that contain chemical inhibitors of methanogenesis that prevent methane formation even when methanogenic organisms are present. In 2014, some in vitro experiments with the red alga Asparagopsis taxiformis showed that as a supplement accounting for 2% by weight of a cow's diet, the algae could reduce ruminant methane emissions by up to 99%. What is the exact enzymatic mechanism? Well, bromoform produced by the alga inhibits methane formation in the ruminant gut. As a result, the cows produce more propionate, a larger molecule, which they can get more energy from. Some evidence suggests that cows can potentially grow more and faster on the same amount of feed when the alga is used as a supplement. Much of the world is currently asking the questions, should we even be eating meat? How is it ethical to raise animals for food? Can we grow meat in laboratories instead? And how can we justify the continued use and expansion of live animals in our food system that causes so much harm to our ecosystems? Livestock farmers who love their herds and their way of life need answers to these questions that validate their continued existence. Organic farmers are particularly in need of solutions because it is grass-fed cows and sheep that produce the most methane. By some estimates, grass-fed animals on the range can produce up to 3 times the methane of cows fed optimized corn and soy-based diets in controlled feed systems. Many of us who farm organically value the cleaner meats, more healthy animals, and natural rotational grazing systems of our operations for their aesthetic and human health benefits, but we have to be honest about the external impacts of the decision to raise grass-fed animals on pasture and range. This organic practice as it is now is far from environmentally sustainable. If organic farmers can turn to a natural feed supplement that they can use to reduce the methane production by their animals, we can sleep better at night knowing that we are doing our part to combat the threat of global warming and know that we are providing healthy foods to our customers and our families. Figuring out how to get free-ranging animals to eat a little bit of seaweed every day is certainly going to be a trick. While animals that eat prepared mixed feeds and concentrated operations can easily have their diets altered by the farmer, that's not so easy to do when your cows and sheep are out on the pasture. Nevertheless, the promise of Asparagopsis taxiformis to serve as a global change agent, to come from the ocean and help us solve our ecological problems associated with food production, is a rare opportunity and one that Texas farmers should embrace. As the state with the largest number of organic dairy cows in industrial closed feeding systems and more cows on feedlots than any place else, Texas is a perfect place to use this strategy to make a measurable dent in the greenhouse gas emissions of our society. As you ponder yourself the questions and problems of humans living on this small blue planet today for Earth Day, I ask you to do what you can to support your local farmers who are building community resilience and economies through their development of foods and fibers for their neighbors and friends. If you know where your milk and cheese come from, talk to the people who make it and sell it about this technological revolution coming to the world of animal husbandry. And as a consumer, make good choices about the foods you buy. Eating less meat is best for the planet, but if you're a meat eater, you have choices too. Very soon, it's likely that you'll have the choice of meat and dairy products and fiber, clothing and blankets, and lots of other farm products that are raised on farms that are working to minimize their greenhouse gas emissions. And you'll see this information on product labels and in advertising campaigns. Making the active choice to consume products from these farms is one way you change the world for the better and make sure we have a beautiful planet for our kids and theirs. Thanks very much, and happy Earth Day.
I want to thank Dr. Interlandi. I asked Jeremy to check and see if by chance he might have joined us while we were presenting his video, but I don't think that's the case. Dr. Interlandi, as you can see, is a farmer that has sheep, and I just couldn't help myself. I just enjoyed watching him feed that little baby lamb. It was so cute. He also, as you heard, takes the wool to Ecuador, where a nonprofit organization of women are working towards creating beautiful, products, clothing with this organic wool. And it's just amazing to hear his story. He has a lot more to share. So if you have the opportunity to connect with him, that would be great. And he points out a really good aspect of climate change, which is a big deal, like he mentioned, in the state of Texas because of all the methane produced by cows and by all livestock. And that's something that we have a lot in Texas. So it's really important to understand that he is not just speaking about the problem, but also the solutions. And a lot of that goes back to research and these career paths that require that type of understanding and knowledge, and how important research is to really understand the root of the problem to come up with sustainable solutions. So I hope you will take this opportunity to share this information with students and other faculty and staff that may be working in research that is related to this. All of these areas are interconnected with sustainability. So we hope that, again, this was an informative session for you. We are going to go to our next presenter that I believe is the last presenter of the day, which is Dr. Julie Mustard, who is also part of our B Campus committee, who has helped tremendously in efforts to not just create, but also expand and enhance the Pollinator Cantina, which is the pollinator garden on the Brownsville campus. Thanks to her efforts, we have had 3 years in a row of B Campus USA designation. And she doesn't take credit for this, but if you happen to go to the Pollinator Cantina website, you will see it has a gallery of photos. She is an incredible photographer. She has the most incredible photographs also of all these pollinators, different pollinators at the Cantina. We will be having a pollinator day on Friday there at the Pollinator Cantina, so I hope that you will join us. It will be the only only live event that we have this year for Earth Fest, given that we were trying to still be safe. And we hope that next year we will have something more lively and face-to-face on both the Edinburgh and Brownsville campuses for you all to join us. But please join us on Friday. With that, I'm going to ask Jeremy to please share Dr. Julie Muster's presentation so you can learn all about the Pollinator Cantina, the importance of pollinators as it relates to life on land. And she's also going to share a little bit about native plants and native pollinators as you watch this presentation. So Jeremy, if you could please share, and please let me know if Dr. Mustard is in the audience for Q&A as well. Thank you.
Absolutely, that she is, and we'll go ahead and open for Q&A right after.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much for asking me to talk about the Pollinator Cantina. It is a very exciting project, both in terms of the great insects and that we are seeing on the campus, and it's just a really nice place to go for a break. So I'm assuming you guys can also see my presentation.
Yes, we can see it.
Great. Okay, so the Pollinator Cantina is on the Brownsville campus near LHSB and the Biomed building, and next to the Resaca as well. And it was started by funding from the Transforming Our World initiative by the Provost's office in 2017. And then we've also been expanding it recently. And the real purpose of the Pollinator Cantina, there's several points, and one is to provide plants for pollinators. And another point is that you can go to the garden. We have signs, and so it's for people to be able to see what the plants are like and say, hey, that plant's covered with butterflies. I'd like to have that at my house. And then also it's a place for students to do independent research projects, and classes can use it as for research. Before I continue, I just wanted to say one thing. I'm actually not a member of the SEAMS. I'm a member in the biology department, just in case you want to look me up. All right, so the Pollinator Cantina is, let me see, it's not. All right, so when you say pollinator, most people think about honeybees, right? You think about that these, of course, are the ones that go out and pollinate our crops. But it's important to realize that the honeybee, Apis mellifera, is not native to North America. So it was brought from Europe by Europeans in the 1600s, and it's now established feral colonies in North America, but it is not native to the Americas. The great thing about honeybees is that they're generalists. So they collect pollen and nectar from lots of different types of flowers, as you can see here. And for agriculture, they are fantastic because you bring one colony to your field and you have tens of thousands of workers in that colony. And so they work really well to pollinate many types of crops. However, some crops are better pollinated by native bees. And as you'll see in a minute, one reason for that is if you can see the bee in the upper right-hand corner, you can see she has a big ball of pollen on her leg. And the honeybees have a special structure on their leg that allows the bees to make big balls of pollen and compact it on there very well. So they're not as good at spreading pollen as many native bees. So as well as not visiting certain types of flowers, they also are not as good at spreading pollen because they have that special structure. So when we look at native bees in the garden, native bees are really understudied in the Rio Grande Valley. Our colleagues up the road in Mission at the Butterfly Center have started looking at their native bees, and they have documented over 50 different types of species, but I'm sure there's many, many more. And native bees may be more efficient at actually spreading pollen. So if you look at the picture in the lower right-hand corner, you can see a native bee, and you can see how much pollen that bee actually has a spread out over its whole body. So unlike the honeybee, who just had that one very compact ball, when this native bee visits flowers, she has pollen all over these little hairs. And so she actually spreads more pollen around on the next plant. Okay. Also, native bees may specialize on specific flower types, and they may also visit flowers that Apis mellifera, the honeybee, does not. Native bees nest mainly in burrows or in the ground. So 70%, 75 to 80% of native bees actually nest in the ground. And then about 20 to 30% of native bees nest in holes in stems. So when you cut a stem and there's a little center part that they can clear out where the little pulpy bit is, so they actually nest in those stems, or they may nest in holes that are made by other insects in wood. So in growing trees or tree stumps, so in dead wood. So it's important to have a mix of both of having these native bees, because they really help with pollinating a wide variety of flowers. So butterflies, of course, are something else that people think about in terms of pollinators, but they actually do not collect pollen. So bees, both the honeybee and native bees, collect pollen to feed to their young, but butterflies do not actually collect pollen. So it wasn't really, they weren't really considered to be good pollinators. But a recent study just showed that pollination by butterflies and flies contributed at least $120 million a year just to the cotton crop in Texas. And so they do actually act as significant pollinators. And part of it is because they visit different flowers on the plants than honeybees do. So they visit the same types of plants. Okay, and in this case, they were looking at cotton, but they actually visit flowers on different parts of the plants, which is very interesting. So the pollinator garden and work here we can do in the Rio Grande Valley is really important, because 40% of the total number of butterfly species that are found in the US visit the Rio Grande Valley either as a permanent resident or during migrations. So by planting native plants in our yards and in the butterfly garden, we are able to support those many species of butterflies. It's also important to make sure when you're thinking about supporting butterflies that you realize that they have 3 distinct life stages, and you need to provide resources for each of those life stages. So the adult butterflies are generalists, and they feed on a wide variety of nectar plants. The caterpillars, however, are usually require a specific larval host species, right? So larvae is the specialized word for a caterpillar. Okay, and you can see here we have a monarch butterfly feeding on milkweed, and monarch butterflies only lay eggs on milkweed. And this is a fritillary butterfly feeding on passion flower. And again, that is the larval host plant. And you also need to have protected areas for them to undergo metamorphosis. So you can see here's a chrysalis, a couple of different species, the fritillary and the monarch. And they need protected areas so that they can be protected and undergo metamorphosis. So when you're thinking about planting a garden, you need to make sure you have areas that contain all of those. Flies actually also act as pollinators. We don't usually think about them, but again, they do not collect pollen, but they feed on nectar. And so when they're feeding on nectar, they get pollen on their bodies, and then they transfer that pollen to the next plant. So again, some studies are starting to show that they have a significant impact on pollination. And Again, that they may visit different plant types, and they also visit different parts of the flower, flowers on different parts of the plant compared to bees. So we really want to think about all our different kinds of pollinators when we're designing a garden. And here's a couple of pictures. The Pollinator Cantina, the construction and maintenance has been done by students. The garden contains over 40 different species of plants native to the lower Rio Grande Valley. And we have larval host plants as well as nectar plants. And we also have a nesting habitat for native bees to try and provide extra space for them. So I just want to thank the garden. Like I said, it's been maintained and constructed by students. So our students are totally awesome. We also have the UTRGV facilities group as our collaborators. And we had an initial grant to start the garden from the Transforming Our World initiative. We've also received money from the USDA, which has allowed us to expand and enhance our garden. We've had donation of compost from the city of McAllen, also donations by Lowe's. And the Department of Biology supports a work study student to actually work in the garden. So with that, I'm very happy to take any questions that you may have.
And we do have Dr. Julie Mustard with us in the audience. So I know that we are already at time, so we're a little over time, but I still want to give her the opportunity to answer any questions anyone might have or to provide some last comments before we move on to closing this day's session. And I don't want you to leave because I do have a couple of things to share with you before you leave for this session. So Dr. Mustard, how are you? Thank you for this incredible presentation and for sharing everything you could within this time frame on the Pollinator Cantina, the successful story of this pollinator garden, and the great benefits that our pollinators have to life on land. Thank you so much for this presentation. Any questions, Jeremy, from the audience?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so Dr. Mustard, if you want to share a few words before we move on to the wrapping up this session.
Well, I would just like to mention that hopefully people can also see we have our Pollinator Cantina, but we've also marked different trees around the campus that are really good for pollinators. Studies show that in urban environments like in cities, one of the main places that bees collect pollen is from trees, right? We always think of the flowers in our flower garden, but it's really important to remember that trees, when they bloom, they're absolutely covered with flowers, and they also provide a lot of important pollen resources. So I also invite you to look around the campus and look for those signs pointing out the trees. And if you're thinking about planting a tree at your house, plant a native tree and plant one that's good for pollinators. And that's why we're also sponsoring the planting of the tree on Pollinator Day on Friday. We're going to plant a coma, which is another type of native tree that we don't have a lot on campus yet. And so, so I just want to think about trees as well as all the flowers in the garden.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mustard. And yes, with that, I want to make sure that we invite everyone on Friday to the Brownsville campus for Pollinator Day. This will be our live event. And as Dr. Mustard has mentioned, we will be planting a pollinator tree, a native tree. So we hope that you will join us and see the beauty of this incredible garden and learn a little bit more about native plants and native pollinators. With that, I want to thank all of our guest speakers, all the incredible presentations, and remind you that tonight we have a movie screening. It is The Year the Earth Changed. This is an incredible documentary. For those of you who have not seen this, I hope that you can take the time, 6 to 8 p.m. tonight. Go get yourself some popcorn, sit back, enjoy this incredible film that kind of shares what happened to life on land during COVID. It is amazing to see things that we've never seen before happen during this time. So it is a very wonderful family movie that you can watch with children as well. So I want to thank everyone. I hope you'll join us tonight for this film. Tomorrow, if you can join us again, we will be covering life below water. This is another one of those sustainable development goals that is really important in terms of protecting our planet and ecosystems. We have another group of incredible presentations for you tomorrow, again from 9:15 to 10:45. And then on Wednesday, tomorrow, we will be featuring another film called The Brave Blue World. So we have a series called Sustainability Adelante, which you can also check out our podcast series, our film series, and TikTok video series. So please visit our website so that you can check all this Sustainability Adelante series, whether podcast, film, or TikTok series. As I mentioned, we do have an Earth Fest Film Fest. So starting tonight, we're going to be sharing a wonderful documentary each night. So go buy your popcorn for the rest of the week, you know, so that you can sit back and watch these incredible films. They are all being featured from 6 to 8:30 p.m. So please make sure to save these on your calendar so that you can join us tonight and the rest of the week. The podcast series, I wanted to share with you that we have several of our presenters today who have also joined us to do podcasts, and you can learn a lot more. So check out the podcast series. We have Dr. Gabler, who you heard from today, Dr. Alexis Rossellis, who you heard Dr. Choudhury mention. He has and leads the Hub of Prosperity. You heard from Dr. Alejandro Fierro-Cabo, who also has a podcast. And also we have our community partner, John Brush, who is from Quinta Mazatlan. He is a UTRGV graduate student who's already graduated and is now working at Quinta Mazatlan, who shares a little bit about the World Birding Center there at Quinta Mazatlan and the importance of birds and the different species we have here in the Rio Grande Valley. So I hope that you have the opportunity to listen to those. I also want to encourage you all to check out our website and to also take the pledge. I think Jeremy has a link he's going to share with you all so that you can get over to that pledge. Regardless of whether you're a vaquero or UTRGV faculty, staff, or student, if you are a community member that has joined us or high school student that is part of our Gear Up and Upward Bound programs, we encourage you to take this pledge. If you're willing to share your email, we will send you a certificate for taking the pledge, and you can save that to remind yourself that you are about to take on the sustainability pathway or the sustainability journey. So put that certificate up someplace where you can look at it on a regular basis, take a photo of it or keep it on your phone so you can look at it and remember that you are moving towards a sustainability pathway or sustainability lifestyle. We hope that you will become a sustainability champion along with us here at UTRGV. So thank you everyone for your continued dedication, commitment, and support towards education for sustainable development. I want to thank all the attendees, all the presenters, our community partners. This Earth Fest is brought to you by the School of Earth, Environmental, and Marine Sciences and is co-hosted with the Office for Sustainability in partnership with the Division of Finance and Planning, the Division of Research, the Office of Engaged Scholarship, Community Engagement, Upward Bound, and Gear Up. I also want to thank the Office for Sustainability staff, Mr. Jeremy San Miguel, who has coordinated all these incredible sessions and is helping us on the IT side take care of all these technical issues that we encounter each time we do an event. Thank you so much, Jeremy, and thank you for sharing all the resources as well with everyone. I want to thank the office assistants, the grad assistants, and the interns. It takes a lot of work to put these things together, and most of that work is being done by our students. So all the beautiful graphics, the video productions, the podcast, the website development that you see, all of that is done by students here in our office. So I want to thank them for doing such an incredible job. With that, I'm going to leave you with this so that those of you who enjoy social media and can connect with us on social can use these QR codes to connect with us on Instagram, on Facebook, YouTube, and also SoundCloud, which is where we have our podcasts. So thank you once again. I hope to see you tomorrow, same time, different. It will be a different link, but we will, each and every activity has a different link, by the way. So please make note of that. So tomorrow's link, if you don't have it, go to our website and you can find it there. Same for the movies. Each and every movie has a different link. So go to our website, go to the film series, and you can find the link to tonight's movie and all the other movies as well, the links to all the other movies. So thank you once again. We are really excited and very honored that you took the time to be with us today. And for those of you who stayed beyond the 10:45 timeframe, thank you as well. So we will see you again tomorrow, and I hope you have a fabulous day. Thanks.